Here's a
Pokemon
that looks like an apple.
There are few types of video game controversy that get more bitter than a good old-fashioned Nintendo controversy. And I should know, I once said that The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild was good instead of great or perfect, and I was sent to video game jail for being a bad video game man. And also people got really mad at me once for giving Super Mario Odyssey a 7 out of 10, even though I hadn't reviewed it and had stopped doing scored reviews ages ago. They were just told that I gave the game that score, and they got really mad. Nintendo fans are hilarious. But the latest shitstorm, I say latest, it's been going on for a long time and has come to a head now that the game is out. The latest shitstorm involves Pokémon Sword and Shield, and it's an interesting one, to say the least. Some have dubbed it Brexit. That's not right. I meant to say Dexit and I said Brexit. Leave that in. I mean, Brexit is a more important thing to worry about, but Dexit is like up there. Dexit is like almost as bad as... Anyway, let's talk about Pokémon Sword and Shield and that whole Dexit thing. But first, I choose you, chunky grumbler! It's squirting again! Pokémon. It's a merry children's game for children designed to make children smile. An overwhelmingly positive game that brings happiness wherever it goes, spreading a message of friendship, togetherness, and the success of a capitalistic endeavor that uses the message of friendship and togetherness to justify selling two almost identical versions of the same game at once. Over the course of its 2 decades-long existence, Pokémon has remained a relevant and popular series, one of the most beloved video games among all ages, and, sarcasm aside, a genuinely positive experience for practically anyone who plays it. That positivity, however, has been marred somewhat in the latest installment, Pokémon Sword and Shield. Resentful sentiment has brewed since early on in the game's marketing cycle and has persisted up until its very recent release. At the heart of this ill will is a controversy some have called Dexit. And if Game Freak has any business sense, it will immediately craft a Pokémon with that exact name. But what is Dexit? Why, it's the great culling, the Thanos snap of Pokémon, the furry fucking slaughter. Basically, with over 800 Pokémon on its roster now, Game Freak decided to make cuts to Pokémon Sword and Shield, pruning its Pokédex of many colourful creatures. There have been a lot of cuts. A lot of cuts. In fact, over 50% of the existing Pokémon bestiary have not made it to the latest game, including a number of fan favourites and, if I'm being honest, practically all my own personal faves. They cut Ekans. They cut Ekans. They fucking cut Ekans. Fuck. Since Dexit first kicked up a whirlwind of controversy months prior to the game's launch, animosity toward it has only grown among the more vocal set of dejected Pokémon players. Controversies include the revelation that despite Pokémon Sword and Shield's much-lauded, wide-open exploration areas, players are actively discouraged from getting too ambitious because they won't be able to catch certain monsters of a high enough level. Now, while it makes sense that Game Freak wouldn't want players catching high-level monsters and cakewalking the rest of the game, it's still counterproductive to not let you even catch them when Game Freak could just make them unusable. Catchable, but unusable until the player is at an appropriate level. This is what RPGs do with high-level gear all the time. And Pokemon itself has quasi-done this since inception by making over-leveled Pokemon unreliable and disrespectful toward the player until they progress further into the game. Just making them uncatchable, what's the bloody point? Literally, how the fuck are you going to catch them all when they've decided you actually can't catch them all? Pokemon threads with information revelations on Reddit games have typically exploded in terms of comments all throughout these past months. Posts about the removal of certain moves removes the locking of the frame rate to 30 FPS, the hiding of in-game sound settings behind a random NPC that you're not even told about. Comments on these topics have ranged in the thousands, and the main Pokémon subreddit is awash with similar topics and complaints. But whatever sub-controversies arise, personally I don't know why the online features are so fucking archaic. Oh wait, yes I do, Game Freak. It all goes back to the main big real reason people are upset. The reason why many things that might otherwise be forgivable have not been given a pass this time. It all comes back to that nefarious Dexit, the curious case of the perished Pokémon. The discussion around Dexit has gotten toxic to say the least. People are picking sides. A Twitter hashtag called #ThankYouGameFreak became the #1 trend for a while, as some attempted to combat the negativity, but that didn't work. If anything, it just became another messy battleground, did that whole thing. As I learned in a previous video where I jokingly overstated my disappointment at Ekans' removal, you can't even make fun of the issue without people taking it very personally. In fact, some people perceived my joking about Ekans as a genuine personal attack, seeing the over-the-top nature as a direct dig at them, such is the overwhelming sensitivity of the issue. But here's the rub. Jokes notwithstanding, Ekans genuinely is my best one out of Pokemon. It's purple, which is the colour of royalty. It's snake backwards, which is an important thing. It turns into Arbok, which is a good Pokemon as well. It eats Pidgey, which is the right thing to do, because fuck Pidgey. And it has a bit of yellow on it, which also is cool, I think. Seriously, I've been playing Pokemon since the glory days, since the late 90s when things were actually good. The Fifth Element had come out. Aqua was at the height of its fame with chart hits like Barbie Girl and Dr. Jones. The DeMarco family had arrived at EastEnders, and more importantly, Twitter hadn't been invented yet, and Ekans was my main. Fuck the idea of competitive tiers. I know Ekans isn't 5-star top rated, best one in the game from a gameplay perspective, but that don't matter. It was my favourite, and literally any Pokemon game where it's available, it's been a featured installment in my party. And yes, I am genuinely, authentically disappointed he's not in it. The thing about Dexit is that it probably doesn't matter at all to anybody who doesn't have a Pokemon they feel particularly strong about, or if such a Pokemon actually made the cut. But to anyone else, it's a goddamn travesty. Basically, Dexit is fine, unless you're a fan of Lickitung, in which case... Oh, fuck, hang on, let's check this chart. No Lickitung! Lickiting's one of my other favourites. But what about Chansey, the Pokemon that makes me feel seen because I'm big and pink and fat and carry an egg in my tummy? Oh, shit. Chansey. Fat Chansey. What other Pokemon do I like? God. Slowpoke? Slownope? Shroomish? I wish? Skitty? Oh, shitty. Dratini? Oh, Drat, and double Dratini. Toucannon? It's non-canon! This is all at least according to the last list of cuts. Just in case some of these actually did make it in and I missed it, I'm gonna keep them in anyway because this wordplay is just too good. Now that I actually look over the list of cuts, I think I might have been hit harder by Dexit than fucking anyone, which I think makes me Dexit Jesus, suffering with dignity so that Clink fans get to keep their... Wait a minute. Clink? Fucking Clink? That made it in! That's just fucking cogs! That's just a fucking load of fucking cogs! Clink! Fucking Clink! But at least Charizard made the cut, right? Fucking Charizard. Fucking teacher's pet suck up. Couldn't dare have a Pokemon game without the billionth iteration of goddamn Charizard. None of the other starters from previous games make it in, by the way. No Bulbasaur, no Mudkip, no Mark Wahlberg, but Charizard gets special treatment. And that right there is the biggest reason why Sword and Shield sticks in the craw. Because when Game Freak chooses to keep some Pokemon and jettison others, it sends sending the message that some Pokemon are just better whether you like them or not. Some simply must return, while others, well, they're just not good enough. And while there may be business reasons for that, Charizard shifts a ton of merchandise after all, in a series that has actively encouraged players to pick their faves, and is all about forging bonds and connections with your colourful little friends, Game Freak has inadvertently created its own problem. Pokemon, except for Clink, are largely designed to be as cute and endearing, or at least as cool as possible, so tons of people can pick their favourites from a massive gallery of cute or cool things. And over the course of years, players have learned to give a real shit about them. They catch these Pokemon themselves, they train these Pokemon themselves. As the games have expanded, they've allowed players to interact even more meaningfully with them, feed them, pet them, basically invest a whole lot of time and energy into their best ones. Pokemon has cultivated an environment where players feel very personally about their favourite monsters. So of course people are going to take it very personally when their favourites don't make the cut. Of course people will look at those that did make the cut and wonder why those are favoured and the ones they identify with are not. You're instantly creating a haves and have-nots system where you're implying, rather quite strongly so, that certain Pokemon are better than others. And since the game's trained people to invest really personally in the Pokemon, well then it stands to reason that yes, there are players that will see it as a big fuck you. It makes sense that those who've invested in the unworthy are probably gonna feel rather bitter about it. Now, as much as I love Ekans, I'm not so furious and dejected that I've refused to play Sword and Shield. And while I am genuinely disappointed in the Dexit cuts, I've mostly played up my disappointment for a laugh. But still, yeah, it is a fucking letdown nonetheless. That said, we do need to be a little bit reasonable here and appreciate that Game Freak's position is unenviably difficult. Look, Pokemon is an old series now, over 20 years old to be precise, and in that time its bestiary has expanded to include 807 Pokemon. Craig, that's right, isn't it? 807? I can't be bothered. No, I can't be bothered to Google it. It's a children's game. I don't really give a fuck. Oh, wait, no, don't keep that bit, Craig. Don't keep that bit. Oh, fuck. Despite how easy some people think it is to do, you simply can't keep bringing back that many Pokemon in perpetuity as you add more and more and more and more. Not without other aspects of the game taking detrimental hits in quality at the very least. That's over 800 fucking Pokemon, each one having to be reintroduced, rebalanced, and piled on to an ever-expanding mass of in-game data. It is not a small task, and in many ways I can't blame Game Freak for making the cuts. However, if we are to accept that the cuts are understandable on some level, the disappointment felt by those affected is, for the reasons I've already given, equally understandable. Whoever wins, we lose. Unless you're a Charizard fan, in which case you fucking win. You always win, don't you? You always fucking win! Dexit isn't a big deal. Unless you got Dexited. Wait a minute. I didn't get Chingling either! Oh, for fuck's sake! Oh, Chunky Grumbler, you're so angry at God. Anyway, as for Pokemon Sword and Shield, I've been playing it and it's archaic. Like, it's still decent, like there's still Pokemon fun and jolly japes to be had. Just seeing the same old routine in Pokemon Sword and Shield, with a few gimmicks added on top. I mean, at this point, is it really all that distinguishable from, well, Dynasty Warriors? If we're being honest, if we're being really honest with ourselves, Pokemon is kind of the Dynasty Warriors of Nintendo, you know? It is. It is. The funny thing is, I think there was a solution to all of this, and a pretty simple one at that. Rather than picking and choosing which Pokemon to save, fostering embittered dudgeon among fans of those left behind, Game Freak should have just brought none of the existing Pokédex back. Not a single fucking Pokemon returning. Instead, they could have added way more new ones for an all-new complete Pokédex. I'd say go for an entirely fresh 151. While this still would have disappointed people who wanted to see their favourites, a fully fresh roster of Pokemon would have plenty made up for it, allowed Sword and Shield to stand on its own as a brand new game with a brand new era behind it, and would have completely dissolved the resentment and hostility from those who felt like Game Freak was shitting all over their favourites in favour of kink. Fucking kink! I said kink, that wasn't on purpose. That was fucking Freudian. I genuinely believe that would have solved a big part of the controversy. I think a lot of resentment would have been replaced by excitement at all of these brand new Pokemon to look forward to, without the picking and the choosing of certain Pokemon to bring back that only serves to directly emphasize how fucked over certain Pokemon are. Maybe then it wouldn't stand out so much how shit this particular new Sword and Shield Pokemon is. Here's a Pokemon that looks like an apple. That's all it fucking is. A fucking apple. It's an apple. And what? That's good, is it? That's meant to be a good idea. And this horrible thing that looks like a cross between cum and dog shit, that's an adequate snake replacement for Ekans, is it? And this one's just a teacup? Why? Why teacups now? There are good new Pokemon in Sword and Shield. Corviknight looks really effing cool, and All Creamy is... Yep, but I think if Game Freak had to design an all-new roster instead of relying on past hits to fill out the ranks, we might have had a bit more imagination than a goddamn teacup. Or they would have run out of ideas and we'd have got a fucking tea bag as well. Oh god, the teacup turns into a teapot, doesn't it? Yep. Unfortunately, characters like Pikachu and Charizard are the Hulk Hogan and Ric Flair of Pokemon, and Game Freak will likely never be so bold as to dare a game without them anymore, even if it would have been better. Gotta shift that merch, I suppose. But that's a big problem with Pokemon overall. It adds little gimmicks, it expands ideas, but it never dares anymore. It doesn't dare to be bold. Personally, the most invested I've been in a Pokemon game in years was that Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu and Let's Go Eevee stuff. Despite itself being a retread of Red and Blue, I thought it did some interesting new stuff with the core concept, almost all of which was scrapped for Sword and Shield, subsequently making the newest game feel like a marked step back for me. But that's been a long-running issue with the core Pokemon series for a while now. It's relied so much on bringing shit back, and now it can't bring everything back, and it's kind of fucked itself. We're left with a game that was always going to disappoint a passionate group of fans and disappoint many of them very, very harshly. Game Freak made people care deeply about these little pretend animals, and the moment Game Freak revealed that it, like pretty much any company, didn't really care about most of them at all, Game Freak opened itself up to this exact kind of backlash. But hey, at least Charizard fans are set for fucking life. Ekans, 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 Ekans. Anyway, so we've talked now about Dexit, and I've made a few of my... get up there. So I'll probably have a video detailing my thoughts on Pokemon Sword and Shield itself a bit more fully. Do one of my classic Jimpressions that half of you watch, and that'll be quite good. The game itself, as I've said, feels a little bit old-fashioned, a little bit too old-fashioned. It's not a step forward. Right now, the Pokemon series needs a real step forward, especially if they're making all those cuts to the established roster and saying that they need to put that effort elsewhere. Like, the effort needs to be a bit more visible. Like, I get it, it's a big RPG with a lot of big Pokemon, but it kind of looks really old. The Pokemon are barely animated for their attacks and stuff like that. A lot of old sounds are still used. Why aren't all the Pokemon saying their names already? It's gotten far enough along that we shouldn't be hearing little bleeps and bloops for Pokemon sounds. If I'm playing as Ekans, I want it to go Ekans like it does in the cartoon. Oh wait, I can't because Ekans isn't in it! And I'm not kidding about that online mode. Trying to do raid battles online with people, or just trying to interact with the online stuff in general, is fucking... I mean, I said on Twitter the other day, who needs a time machine when you can try and go online in Sword and Shield and step back 15 years into the past? It's a pissing shambles. Pokemon Sword and Shield has the DNA of a 20-year-old game and feels like a 20-year-old game. It just hasn't moved forward. And while they're not moving forward, they're still clinging on to this idea of selling two versions of the same thing, which, come on. By now, we all have to admit that's a fucking scam, right? It's a scam. Then again, I am still playing it. I've spent a lot of this past weekend playing it. I will spend more time playing it, so ultimately I'm the fool. We're all fools, because we keep sucking this shit down. But at the very least, my faithful viewers, The taste of that shit down which you suck, yeah, that works, can be sweetened somewhat by having these words on your lips. Thank God for me, the one who is right about Nintendo being a bad company. Breath of the Wild, shit.
Everybody's thinking about me.